get you
Hey
pumped up.
guys.
Hey, it's been a
Hey,
long time no
everybody.
see. I need to change the date and stuff on the intro because it still says Thursdays at 2:30, and I know that we're going to be switching things around a little bit because
Oh,
I know
yeah.
you're working. Yeah, we picked Sundays, and you're going to be working for 4 months on Sundays.
Yeah, and it may start quicker than I had originally thought. So
Oh, really?
we'll have to talk about that. But yeah, I may be working next Sunday. So.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah,
We'll work it out.
We'll
I
figure
finally found
something
people
out.
to switch with me at work so I could actually do what I need to do through the week. So it's actually a good thing. It's not good for us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we'll work it out.
Oh my goodness. Well, hello, Josephine. Glad you're here. Awesome. So cool. Well, okay. So it has been since December since we met. So why don't we take like a couple minutes and just catch up, like what has been going on since we met last?
Well, I just had a routine follow-up with my neck doctor, and y'all, I'm just gonna say this because it is just amazing. My blood pressure first try. Now, y'all remember I had white coat syndrome.
Yeah.
I used to have it, and it got somewhat better, after I went, keto and kind of lower and lower carb. But let me tell you, I'm mostly carnivore, keto maybe a couple days a week, but let me get to what, because I put it in my phone, because this is just amazing. My blood pressure was 107/77.
Wow. That's great.
So,
and that's
and I have a couple of friends who they aren't carnivore, which is fine, but they are very heavily meat based, and they've gotten rid of the grains and stuff, and they said they've noticed a difference in their blood pressure too.
That's awesome.
So I'm like Dr. Berry now. Now I just tell everybody I can because it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you get that insulin down, regardless of your low carb, keto, carnivore, ketovore, whatever you are, if you're getting your insulin levels down, then your blood pressure is going to go down.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. And I've had more people tell me. My brother, for example, is another person who had told me that he's noticed a big difference in his blood pressure, and his wasn't like really high. It was kind of like, sometimes it'd be like a couple points over the recommended or whatever, but his has gone down to where it's not quite as low as mine. His is like in the 110s, but he's noticed a difference in it though. So it's
that's
just
still
really
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Hey, Kim, what about you?
What was the question?
How have you been?
Like, what have you been doing since we lived?
I've been good. I've been good. My son started one of my sons started his third semester of college, and one of the other ones, I've got 4, but one of the other ones started his second semester of college, and it's just been like kind of supporting them in that. And the 22-year-old, he doesn't really, he's just kind of doing his own thing, but they're both doing really well. And then my other 2 boys are doing well, and I'm just kind of focused on trying to still be their mom as long as I can.
Yeah. Of course.
And it's crazy because you think once they become teenagers, I always thought that the younger ages, they would need me the most, but actually when they're teenagers, they still need mom, so, and I like that.
Yeah.
I like for them to still need me.
And they still need mom in their 20s and in their 30s.
Yeah.
It's just a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've just been focused on family and just, I'm really trying to save money, like just not spend as much money, just be more conscious of what I'm spending money on, and just really focused on home and family and stuff. So
that's a good thing to be focused on. And I've been doing the same, like with my, especially with my daughter, because she lives like very close to me. And so we spend time together just about once a week on average. And, she's got a Costco membership. She's also got a membership, and she's trying to decide whether she's going to keep both of them. But I go along with her, and take advantage. And I'm telling you, Costco's huge. I had never been to a Costco before.
Yeah.
Oh,
But they have great carnivore friendly and keto friendly stuff there.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting. I'm thinking about putting together. I honestly haven't done crap on my channel lately. But I was thinking about putting something together. People do like Costco hauls and whatever. But I mean, they've got stuff like if you're lazy like me, they have some pre-cooked stuff. So it's not completely free of preservatives, but the ingredients are pretty clean. And I buy stuff like that because I think I've told y'all before. I mean, some of my days are long and my brain is just fried. I don't feel like cooking anything, even if it's cooking something easy, I'll just slap. But if I have something prepared or something there, then I can just sling it in the microwave and and get it done. So anyway,
Costco has good meat too.
Yeah, they
have
do.
pretty good, high quality standards for meat for sure. So awesome,
the
good.
family is really important, so that's good. What about you, Lynn?
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I went to Phoenix and went for the Healing Humanity meetup and did my presentation there, shared my story there, but we ended up making a whole vacation out of it and stayed for 2 weeks, and it was great. It was so awesome. I had some really incredible non-scale victories during that trip, and I went horseback riding for the first time ever. Did not have to worry about any weight limits. And so that was the thing before, is that I would have broken that poor horse's back, and so I could never do stuff like that. So I went horseback riding. We went on up in the Sonoran Desert, but it was actually like up these hills and trails that go up these hills. And we had a guide, and it was just Dave and I on this excursion that we went on with the guide. So it was really nice. And then we went, like the very next day, we went on a 4-hour Sonoran Desert dune buggy excursion. And
oh my gosh.
yeah, one of the cool things about that for me was that I didn't even think about or have to worry about, like, okay, what if I have to call 911 while I'm out there because I'm having a mast cell reaction? And that was always a consideration for me, because I'd have, even sitting at home, I'd have these random mast cell reactions and have to call 911. And so it was awesome. I didn't have to worry about that because we were far in these, it was like 25 miles, kind of round trip, I think. And we were deep into the desert and these crazy trails. And I drove, like, the first part of it I drove, which was so fun. But man, it was awesome. And it was really cool too, because they provided us with these coats. And this is, to a lot of people, this may be minor, but for me, I appreciate every little thing, right? They provided us with these coats because they said, your coats are going to get filthy if you try to wear your own coat. And the biggest size they had was an extra large. I wouldn't have been able to do it before because I was like a 3X, right? Sometimes a 4X. And it was nice because, like, yeah, I can put this on, I can zip it up, no problem. They provided us with these things over our heads and do-rags and helmets and goggles. I mean, we were just like garbed up from head to toe. And then when we got to the halfway point, it was a sunset thing. And so we hiked up this hill to go and look at the view and this and everything. And I didn't have any problems at all, which was awesome. So
This sounds amazing.
it was so great.
Fun.
Yeah, it was so great. And then we went to the Grand Canyon and we did a rim tour. And then I was actually, like, my cold tolerance is getting better because it was so cold. Like, it's like Flagstaff area in the Grand Canyon this time of the year, it gets really cold. And I was able to sit out there, and even though it was freezing to death, and watch the sun set over the Grand Canyon, which was awesome. And just amazing. Yeah. Everybody else on our tour stayed in the shuttle at that point because that was the end of the last stop of the tour, and it was really super cold, but I was able to do it. And I wanted to do it because I wanted to just appreciate it. And the fact that I couldn't have done it a year ago, was just really cool. So yeah. So I had lots of those types of things. Yeah. But
Well,
To quote Dr. Berry, huzzah!
huzzah! Yes. Yes. Anyway, so I'm back home. I did realize that my sinuses do like the dry heat in Phoenix in the Arizona better than the damp in Washington State during the winter. So I did feel better from a sinus standpoint there.
Mhm.
You know, it is what it is. Dave and I said, like, when he retires, we're probably going to be wintering down in Arizona.
I would too. I love Arizona. I have a friend who lives in the Phoenix area, and yeah, I just love it there. But I was shocked at how cold it gets because I
It
visited
gets
2
cold.
different occasions, but it was
Really?
around this time of the year, the second time I went and visited, and it was really cold at night, and I was just shocked that
Yes.
it was that cold.
Yes. It gets very cold. Yes, it was an awesome trip. Yep. So, anyways, good. Well, listen, so we have been I know it's been a while we've held up this book, but we are going through this book, The Ketogenic, called Ketogenic, The Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction in Human Health. It is a medical textbook. And unlike a book club, we read and discuss as we go. We do not read ahead. And we left off last time. We finally finished after this is our 24th live stream.
we finished 2 chapters.
We finished 2 chapters.
I'm proud of us, though.
Well, I mean, you have to look. We're how many minutes in right now?
I know. Well, this is kind of
Started.
a catch up, right? So we are starting part 2, which is the medical nutritional therapy, which starts with chapter 3, which is our endocrine chapter. So you guys are ready to get going?
Sure.
Yeah, I can start
Right.
if you want.
Okay,
I'll
go
start.
for it.
Okay, so we are in part 2, medical nutritional therapy, and chapter 3 is the endocrine. 3.1 Introduction. Endocrine dysregulation is the hallmark of modern chronic disease, with insulin resistance playing a central role. Research surrounding treatments to such disorders are complicated due to complex hormonal regulation of homeostasis, with the liver playing a central role. Yet recognizing the common pathology provides a more universally applicable approach to treatment: the target and regulation of insulin. Therapeutic carbohydrate restriction has efficacy in regulating insulin, often without the need for or with the prescription of pharmacotherapies. God, sorry, y'all. The most evidence for TCR focuses on its induced remission of metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, and type 2 diabetes. Emerging research also supports its use for type 1 diabetes, polycystic ovarian syndrome, and the regulation of the thyroid and hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Overall, TCR is promising in the treatment, and this is total carbohydrate reduction, is promising in the treatment of endocrine disorders, often surpassing many medications prescribed to treat them. So then the next section is 3.2, and this is by our friend. Well, okay, we're all familiar with him. He's not our friend. This is about the liver, and it's by Robert Sivas. So there we go. We've all seen him.
I watch his channel. Dr. Robert Sivas.
Yep, Dr. Yep. Robert. It just says Robert here, but yeah. I guess maybe they think, it's all doctors, so they don't put I don't know. But anyway. Okay, so the introduction, and then we have description, the normal human liver. Okay. The human body is driven by cellular energy demands. There are 2 metabolic systems: the enterohepatic portal venous system and the systemic system. The liver as the system interface has unique anatomy, allowing it to fulfill this role. The liver has no sensory or motor nervous control and only minor autonomic influence. Denervation after liver transplantation does not appear to affect liver function. It is primarily a hormonal homeostasis organ that receives systemic hormonal feedback. The enterohepatic system accommodates ebb and flow while the systemic system demands stability, though having a degree of tolerance. However, chronic hormonal imbalance of either system causes global metabolic dysfunction.
Interesting.
Okay. Blood supply is critical to understand metabolism and nutrition. The liver receives 25% of the body's total blood volume per minute. I didn't know that.
I actually
All
knew
blood.
that I worked in the,
Oh.
hepatology.
Oh, so yeah, I guess that's wow, 25%. So like any okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of blood. There's a lot of blood flowing through the liver.
I mean, I guess it makes sense because the liver like filters out things, but
Actually, Dr. Berryfinger, the liver is not a filter.
well, I guess people use the word filter. And that's
everybody thinks it's a filter, but it's actually not a filter.
But like it tells things where to go, like it sends things to be eliminated, right? Like if you want to get rid of it from your body, and then it like processes fat, and it does like all this stuff. I guess
we can get into all the functions of the liver later, but I just had to add, Dr. Berry says the liver is not a filter.
He's probably
unlike the kidneys.
Yeah.
Our filter.
Yeah, the kidneys do filter.
Yeah, but yes, you're right.
You are right. It is not a filter.
Use the
Dr.
word
Berry is right.
Yeah,
that did not come from me. Dr. Berry is right.
No, I know.
I probably would still say the liver is filter had I not heard Dr. Berry say that.
I think we say a lot of things that we don't really know. Or you know what I mean? Like we repeat what we've heard.
Yeah.
And the word is used in kind of a bad way. And I think maybe people used to say that just to help people understand more what it does without getting into a lot of detail.
I think that a lot of times people will use that because it helps get rid of toxins, and and so they see it. It's a way they can grasp it by thinking of it as a filter, but it's not really filtering. It's metabolizing.
I think the important part of that he was trying to get at is that people are afraid to eat the liver because they think, oh, it's got all this bad stuff in it because it's a filter. And that's not the case. So
right. Because true, when you think of a filter, you think all the garbage is still there.
Yeah. Or people think they have to do a liver detox to get the stuff out of it. And that's not true.
Ironically, the liver is what's doing the detox. The liver and kidneys are put there for that very purpose
and I think that's probably why people started using the word filter, because it is a detox, and but yes, technically it absolutely is not, because a filter, the residue is left behind, the toxins are left behind.
Yeah.
So anyway, we can go on. Sorry.
But no, that's good. And Josephine says talking through it helps understand more. So
yeah.
Me too.
It helps me too.
Me too.
Yeah, me too. Me three. I've been helping my son study for his anatomy and physiology 1 because his plan is to go into nursing. So he's taking all his prereqs right now. And I'm reading over all this stuff and I'm trying to help him, like you can remember this by this and this by this, and coming up with all these little sayings and stuff. And it's wild how much I did not remember. I mean, there's
how many years ago was that you took anatomy?
Well, I mean, I've been a nurse for 25 years, but it was probably about 3 years before that so about 28 years ago, I took anatomy.
Yeah. I took anatomy in, I think, the spring semester of 1987 in college.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And we don't go around like even in nursing, we don't go around saying, exact proper names for everything. Like sometimes we'll just say, their shoulder is hurt, or I mean, like the only reason we would actually refer to it as the proper name is if it was in a proper, format where we had to write it up somewhere, or, we had to read a doctor's transcription, his note that he's put in. And then we might be like, where's that? And sometimes we have to Google it,
Yeah, exactly. But in anatomy class, it's hard because you need to know every little divot, like even the bones, right? You need to know every
Yeah.
little valley, little dip, little crevice, little ridge. Yeah,
Oh,
I
wow.
remember. Bad,
Woo.
memories of trying to memorize all those things.
Yeah, I didn't do great on the bones test.
That was a
And I'm
really hard.
still
Yeah.
a nurse. What's the name for a nurse who didn't do great on her bones test? Nurse.
Nurse. That's right.
That's great.
But I
I know
remember those.
where the
I
patella
remember.
is.
I remember those lab exams where they'd put like a bone down. You'd have to go from station to station, little station to
Mhm.
station, and they'd put like a bone out, and then they'd have little arrows pointing to specific part of the bone, and that you have to name what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord.
It's not just okay. Yeah, this is the patella. It's like you need
Like
to
a
know
spot on
where
it.
the muscles and the ligaments and everything attach, like what the attachments are, what they're called, little divots and holes, and yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it was very hard, especially for someone who learns like I learn by things making sense to me. Like things have to make sense for me to get it in my head. And so that's just pure memorization. And I just don't
Yeah.
do well with that at all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's what is that name even? Like who made that up? You
Right.
know?
Well, yeah.
And we forgot. We've forgotten it all. So it just goes to show,
Yeah.
right? Did we really learn it, or did we just memorize it for the
We
test?
just memorized it.
Long enough
It's like
to
an
pass the test.
introduction, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
right.
So, okay. So, yeah, blood supply is critical to understand metabolism and nutrition. The liver receives 25% of the body's total blood volume per minute. All blood from the intestine, pancreas, and spleen flows via the portal vein, supplying 75 to 80%, while the hepatic artery provides 20 to 25% nutrient depleted blood returning from the systemic circulation. The liver derives oxygenation via the hepatic artery, while most nutrients and gastrointestinal hormones traffic directly to the liver from the intestine via the portal vein. I had to remember what that PV was. Portal vein. Okay. Adipocyte-derived fatty acids return lipoproteins and autophaged cellular debris traffics via the hepatic artery or indirectly via the portal vein after filtration in the intestine.
There's
Filtration. There's filtration. Okay. There we go. This unique vascular flow pattern makes the intestine and liver the primary regulator of nutrient production and release. Nutrient-rich blood traverses the following path throughout the body. So we have liver to the heart, dilutes with nutrient-depleted blood, then pulmonary capillary bed, then heart, then rest of the body via capillary network, including intestinal and pancreatic capillaries, and then back to the liver. So that's the cycle. I'm surprised they don't have a chart for that, but they don't.
I know. So they should
That's
have a
weird.
timer.
That would be a good chart to have.
Yeah.
Okay, the greatest nutrient gradient is between the portal vein coming to the liver and the hepatic veins leaving the liver. Rich during meals and depleted between meals. The liver is also a rich manufacturing and nutrient storage organ, including glycogen, proteins, and fats. Several somatic hormones regulate storage, production, degradation, release, and uptake of nutrients by the liver following the feeding fasting cycle, as well as circadian cycle. For example, the dawn effect is an early morning, predominantly cortisol-induced override of glycogenolysis and glucose release that results in transient but normal blood glucose surge. So the surge is normal and it's temporary. Is that what they're getting at? I think. The dawn effect is an early morning, predominantly cortisol-induced override of glycogenolysis and glucose release that results in a transient but normal blood glucose surge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
it doesn't last. But I
your
know
blood
for
sugar goes up in the morning just to wake you up, get you going,
Mm-hmm.
and then it comes back down.
Ideally, it'll go back down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it doesn't.
yeah, but a lot of times diabetics, it stresses them out because they don't like that spike because they're already high.
Okay. I can go ahead and read part of the next one if y'all can bear me stumbling through words, because
That's fine.
the next ones are pretty long. Or
Yeah,
one of
go
y'all
ahead.
can start, and then I can.
You can go ahead.
Okay. 3.2.2 is pathophysiology. Okay. Then we're in chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption and snacking. Now, this will be really interesting. Metabolically, the human body is regulated by a complex hormonal system influenced by nutrient demand, supply, and storage. Prolonged disruption of hormonal cycling uncouples the feedback pathways, leading to variable diseases. In an age of perpetual abundance, the greatest metabolic disruption to hepatic pathophysiology is driven by chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption, exacerbated by pro-inflammatory polyunsaturated fatty acids, which we all know as PUFAs, common in processed foods. Normally, feeding triggers insulin release, enhancing global cellular glucose uptake, suppressing glucose production, activating de novo lipogenesis, DNL, in the liver and adipocytes while blocking lipoprotein lipase fat release, triggering protein, cholesterol, and steroid hormone synthesis, and having a general cellular anabolic effect. However, dietary glucose surges and, excessive carbohydrate consumption, CECC, overwhelms the enormous hepatic capacity for first pass monosaccharide uptake, so that perpetually raised, oh, good grief, PB.
Portal vein.
Thank you.
Portal vein.
Portal vein monosaccharide concentrations spill over to the systemic circulation, triggering continuous hyperinsulinemia. Okay, so there is more in that portal vein, right? There's more at that time because we eat typically now, right? They're saying that it increases the monosaccharide concentration, and then it spills over into the systemic circulation, and then it triggers continuous hyperinsulinemia.
Yeah, because I mean, saccharides are sugars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So basically, yeah, chronically eating carbs
just keeps that going constantly.
Keeps that going, and triggers continuous, hyperinsulinemia. So your insulin levels never get a chance to go down.
Okay. Elevated glucose concentration is universally toxic. Initially, the rate and concentration of blood glucose supply is hepatically controlled by insulin, but several factors affect its ability and efficacy. Firstly, the liver utilizes 40 to 60% of insulin. Even the liver has a peak capacity of postprandial glucose uptake, and when reached, excess glucose spills into systemic circulation, where insulin drives glucose into many cells, such as a skeletal muscle, via GLUT4. And we talked about that before, but we would.
And that's assuming you're insulin sensitive.
Yeah. High concentrations of blood glucose drive intracellular hypoglycemia via GLUT4. Intracellular hypoglycemia beyond muscular glycogen storage capacity leads to toxic glucose concentrations and downregulations of GLUT4 receptor. Receptor result. Okay, let me make sure I'm on the right line. Sorry, and downregulation of GLUT4 receptor number and phosphorylation phosphorylation of the GLUT4 receptor, inducing insulin resistance. In the pancreatic alpha cells, this results in glucagon and insulin secretion despite elevated blood glucose concentration with paradoxical good grief, I always stumble on that word, glycogenolysis. Okay. And then glycogenesis and hepatic.
Gluconeogenesis.
Yeah, gluconeogenesis.
Okay. Okay. Let me start this part over.
Okay.
In the pancreatic alpha cells, this results in glucagon and insulin secretion despite elevated blood glucose concentration with paradoxical glycogenolysis, glucogenesis, and hepatic release of glucose despite existing hyperglycemia. But okay, somebody else can take over reading. I think I'm done for the moment. I'm stumbling over for some reason.
So what exactly is that saying? So let's see. It's saying that basically, even though the sugar's high, it prompts gluconeogenesis, right? Am I reading that right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's talking about like your body's utilization of the glucose. So that's talking about, like, this is what I'm hearing, is that it's kind of like you get spillover effects, right? You know, when you get too much for the liver to process and it spills over into the bloodstream. And then at first it talks about it goes into your muscles, but then you end up with intracellular hyperglycemia. So you max out what your muscles can handle. And then you end up having it basically like there's still too much in your system. And so it's affecting your pancreatic alpha cells. They keep secreting more glucagon and insulin, even though you've got like, I mean, it sounds like even though you've got like your body's trying to use the glucose, that's what I'm kind of reading into it at kind of at a high level, and it's taxing everything because your body kind of can't keep up. Am I reading that wrong?
But why is it still stimulating gluconeogenesis? That's what I don't understand. I have trouble paying attention while we're reading aloud.
Okay, but let's go back
and it's just
okay. I got to redefine gluconeogenesis because I get them all mixed up.
That's where your body makes its own glucose from, basically
it says it's paradoxical. So we have the glycogenolysis.
So glycogenolysis is breaking down glycogen to create glucose, and then gluconeogenesis is the process of creating glucose from non-carbohydrate sources.
So that's what carnivores do basically to make sure their blood sugar is good, even though they're not eating any sugar. So I just don't understand, like, if your sugar is already high, why? Because I thought, and this was one of those questions I always had, Lynn, was I thought that your body would not, prompt gluconeogenesis unless you absolutely needed it.
Right. This is saying the opposite.
So I'm so confused right now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is saying the opposite. It's like, even though we have an excess, it still keeps producing. That's the way I'm reading it.
Well, maybe it's that the body is working the way it's supposed to, but because we're eating so many carbs, there's two different processes that are simultaneously triggered, which ultimately I think it's probably saying it's not necessarily that this is healthy. The body is doing what it can, but there's like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, because it does talk about this being paradoxical.
Let's go back though, because it does say at the beginning of this section, it says that normally the feedback pathways work, but prolonged disruption of the hormonal cycling uncouples the feedback
Okay.
pathways, right?
So
So
your
it's
pathways are broken. So
yes,
you're doing it's your
yes,
body's doing something that it shouldn't be doing because of
yes.
the
So in the
high carbohydrate consumption continuously.
right.
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah,
that's what.
because it says normally feeding triggers insulin release, enhancing global cellular glucose uptake, suppressing glucose production. So that's what happens normally. So I think what this is describing is what happens when that hormonal cycling that it's talking about gets disrupted and the feedback pathway is dysfunctional.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I interpret it too. That's very well said, Lynn.
Yeah. So it's basically, that's why it doesn't make sense to us, because we're thinking about, but that's not the way it's supposed to work. And I
Yeah.
think that in its high level terminology, thank you, Dr. Sivas, he's saying,
Yeah.
he's explaining the broken pathway here. And he didn't do it in the Sesame Street way by going, now this is the correct way and this is the incorrect way. He
Right.
just kind of says it very high level.
Yeah.
I think that's, yeah.
So that makes a little more sense when you realize he's describing it, how it's just the dysfunctional,
Yeah.
what
So this is one way that, people know that like their hormones are out of whack and they're, you got all kinds of hormones, right? So this is one way that your hormones can get all out of whack from just a crappy diet, basically. Your body's just like totally confused and the pathways aren't even pathwaying.
Yeah,
they're
right.
doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
So
yeah.
Okay.
So basically it's this cycle that if it gets disrupted and it's not working properly, all you're doing is so your body doesn't even scale back on the glucose production because it's all confused and doesn't know what
it's
to
like
do.
haywire, right?
Yeah. Which makes sense because it does end up leading to diabetes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And diabetes, they keep producing all this extra glucose.
Yeah, even if they don't eat sometimes,
Sometimes, yeah. So interesting.
I mean, they'll be fasted for 8 hours and then you'll check them either in the middle of the night or in the morning. Their sugars will still be high.
Yeah.
Because I'd say partly because of this, but
I wonder how long, and I hope that he's going to go into this, but I wonder how long it takes of avoiding carbs, to correct this.
I think it's different for each person because I know that different people recover from insulin resistance at different rates, and hormones play a lot in that, like even like female hormones or lack thereof, stuff like that. Your insulin resistance can kind of hang on for longer than it normally should.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I would imagine that there's other factors like your just normal everyday stressors that will keep your cortisol elevated that probably play a role in that,
which is
well.
a hormone,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hormones are just the cause of all the problems.
Yeah.
Well, I think though, if we were eating to begin with the way that, humans evolved to eat, I mean, it's like putting, the old adage about, or the old analogy about putting the wrong fuel in the car. It ain't going to work right if it works at all. So now your body is just trying to compensate. It's just like, well, I've got to try to do something, I'm trying here, but it no worky.
Right.
Yeah.
Why can't he write that way? It no worky.
No worky.
That's going to be the abridged version of the book.
Yeah, it's just no worky. All right, I'll try to read a couple more here. Maybe I can make it through some of these. Of course, I'm also out of practice. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. Let's see. We stopped at okay. I think we stopped at, let's see, where did we? Okay, while insulin resistance results in hyperglycemia, GLUT2 hepatic glucose uptake continues with maximum DNL regulated only by AMPK, including non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and hyperaminoacidemia. Glucagon concentration is in the, why do I keep blanking?
Portal vein.
Portal vein. Thank you. Portal vein is 40% greater than systemic concentration. Inducing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Glucagon concentration in the portal vein is 40% greater than systemic concentration. So it's saying, I guess, then resulting when insulin resistance results in hyperglycemia, GLUT2. So hepatic glucose uptake means that glucose that's brought into the liver, it helps induce non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and then it also results in glucagon concentration in the portal valve being 40% more than anywhere else in that system. Is that?
I don't know what the relevance of that is, but the glucagon increases the blood sugar levels.
Mm-hmm.
In the portal vein.
Well,
so I guess it's just saying that there's more of it there than there is anywhere else because of that.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Okay. Cells initially increase glycogenesis, DNL, and glycolytic pathway flux. So flux is like change, I guess, through the citric acid cycle. In the pancreas, elevated beta cell glucose concentration drive insulin release and glucagon inhibition, but reach a genetically predetermined maximum. In addition, due to high production and insulin resistance, arterial hyperinsulinemia blocks further beta cell release. Finally, insulin resistance in pancreatic alpha cells results in paradoxical glucagon release that, together with elevated cortisol concentration and hyperglycemia, triggers hepatic glycolysis and gluconeogenesis despite hyperglycemia that is toxic to the blood cells.
So it's this vicious cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's more of that, it no working.
More of the same.
That's right.
Okay. So under hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, and insulin resistance, hepatic VLDL production becomes continuous with significant rises in IDL and smaller dense LDL-B after deposition of hepatically produced lipids in adipocytes. Together with hyperglycemia-mediated endothelial injury and intrinsic clotting cascade activation without thrombolysis, LDL-B particles stabilize the clots anchored by macrophages. Hyperinsulinemia-driven HDL reduction reduces transfer of hepatic apoproteins from HDL to LDL-B particles, leaving them in circulation unrecognized by the liver, inhibiting removal. So it just gets to the point where the liver's like, I don't see you, is kind of the way I'm interpreting that. Okay. This default leads to vascular lipid deposition, resulting in atherogenic plaque rather than cyclical thrombolysis that occurs continually in healthy vascular systems as part of injury repair. Not only does hyperglycemia damage the vessels directly, chronic hyperglycemia-induced hyperinsulinemia inhibits HDL formation and plaque lysis while leading to elevated LDL-B concentration. In clinical experience, low, smaller HDL correlates with higher incidence of atheroma, while a therapeutic carbohydrate restriction increases HDL number and size, decreases free triglyceride concentration, and appears to stabilize coronary artery calcium score.
Yeah, and I've heard people talk about their coronary artery calcium score going down.
I watched this one video and it was on, I went blank on her name, but she's very well known, got long blonde hair. She's real bubbly Southern.
Yeah,
girl.
I know. I always forget her name too. But yeah, like she had a really large, big CAC score, and it went down to like really low.
Yeah, there was a person, I don't think it was her personally, but on her channel. Oh, it's at the tip of my tongue what her name is. But anyway, I love watching her stuff, and it's so sad that I can't like pull her name out.
Was it on Kelly Hogan's channel?
Yes, Kelly Hogan. That's her. It was a guest on her channel. Actually had the images of where her score went down to nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I mean, she had actual proof, and it was even supposedly the same, like doctor's office and machine and all of this stuff. And like, they were amazed. Like the doctor was amazed, but that's pretty wild.
Yeah, so basically, translating this section, it means that the sugar, continuous increase in blood glucose, actually damages the inside of your vessels, and can also lead to your liver not recognizing the bad particles, and then they like build up, and it's not like dissolving the clots properly, and then they're just adding to themselves, and so then they're attaching, so it can lead to like, heart attacks and stuff like that, cardiovascular disease, or blockages elsewhere.
Right. And your HDL, so the small dense particles tend to increase, and the HDL tends to go down. I
didn't realize that HDL has like there's puffy HDL and like good HDL, bad HDL. I never heard that there was, the size of them, like good and bad. Like, I don't know. I had never really heard that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard either, because it says that in clinical experience, low, smaller HDL correlates with higher incidence of atheroma. So interesting. So I wonder if there must be a test to check, because you can check your particle size of your LDL. I had that done, but I never heard of a test to check for particle size on the HDL.
Me neither.
So
maybe they can only do that for studies or something. Like maybe that's an advanced test, possibly. I don't know.
I'll have to go back and double check my test results and see if they did that and I just missed it. I don't recall seeing them to comment on the particle size of my HDL, but I do know that my HDL did start to increase because it was too low before, and it has been increasing since I've been eating carnivore. So that's good.
I wonder if the measurement of the HDL, like you know how like people will have HDL of like, I don't know, just a 50, but then it goes up to 75. I wonder if part of that is because the HDLs are getting puffier and they're not so small anymore. Maybe. I don't know. That's interesting. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we're on the next section, obesity and type 2 diabetes.
All right. Kim, you want to read?
Sure.
All righty.
Okay. 3.2.2.2, obesity and type 2 diabetes. High carbohydrate consumption directs postprandial lipid traffic from the liver to adipocytes rather than from the intestine to adipocytes, as seen with TCR. TCR. What is TCR?
I think it's
Therapeutic
total
carbohydrate
reduction.
Therapeutic carbohydrate restriction. This process is driven by hyperinsulinemia and only occurs under high carbohydrate conditions. Evolutionarily, this process of tolerance for transient seasonal hyperinsulinemia allowed humans to store large amounts of fat before winter. However, in the era of carbohydrate abundance, this process has transformed from a survival advantage to a constant state. CECC overwhelms chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption, overwhelms this system and triggers progressive stages of worsening insulin resistance. Genetically, some humans have massive insulin production capacity, so that hyperinsulinemia drives DNL. What is DNL?
That's the de novo lipogenesis.
Okay, de novo lipogenesis. Even through fasting hyperglycemia. Keeping blood glucose in relative check as measured by hemoglobin A1C less than 5.9. Reducing insulin resistance but resulting in obesity. Clinical experience indicates that this obesogenic pattern manifests where these patients appear spared from intravascular effects of hyperglycemia, but have chronic fatigue issues, steroid synthesis dysfunction, cellular inflammation, and higher cancer and dementia risk. Due to the weight and inflammation, orthopedic joint degeneration is common. While reversible NAFLD is ubiquitous, they are spared from non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, NASH, and metabolic syndrome, and are relatively healthy. Fat distribution is mostly subcutaneous.
Yeah,
Under
so that's
high heart
protective, right? It's like it's a genetic
and
thing. Like
that's
some people,
and also that's like women when our estrogen, like when we are before menopause and our estrogen is high, it's kind of a protective sparing thing like that, and we're like metabolically superhuman, and then when we go through menopause and our estrogen drops, then we are like at a, I think, as much of a risk, if not greater, than men.
well, this sounds like it's only like temporarily advantageous because yes, it protects you from diabetes because your blood sugar stays pretty stable. But it says that you also have other issues, chronic fatigue and all these other things, and all the cellular inflammation, higher cancer and dementia risks. So,
but I think this is the genetic thing, like you were talking about, like
genetic,
where certain people are capable of storing more subcutaneous fat. Because that subcutaneous fat is not as harmful as the fat that's around in between your organs. And
I think that was me for a long time, because there was a long time, like decades, where I was very obese, but my blood sugar was always very, very healthy level. But then the last several years before I became carnivore, I had moved into that pre-diabetic state. So it was probably heading, obviously it was heading in the wrong direction. But so I think that this genetic predisposition just maybe delays the process.
Yeah, it's like a protective mechanism. It's it's compensation basically. And some people, they don't have the genetic ability to gain that much weight. So that's why you see skinny diabetics. All right. So under high carbohydrate conditions in patients incapable of high insulin production, hyperglycemia and insulin resistance occur early. These patients gain a modest amount of weight, but due to insulin resistance, persistent intravascular hyperglycemia occurs, raising hemoglobin A1C, but also activating white blood cells and platelets. Clinical experience indicates that this diobesogenic pathway is expressed as hypertriglyceridemia, vasculopathy, atherogenesis. Hold on just a second. I put my microphone over here because I got a kid in the kitchen being noisy. Okay. Clinical experience indicates that this diobesogenic pathway is expressed as hypertriglyceridemia, vasculopathy, atherogenesis, thromboocclusion, metabolic syndrome, intravascular inflammation, and increased risk for steatohepatitis and ischemic hepatocellular dysfunction. Osmotic capacity of glucose also affects blood volume, blood pressure, and edema. Insulin resistance also leads to uncoupling of negative feedback control between beta and alpha cells of the pancreas, leading to paradoxical hyperglucogenemia, resulting in hepatic glucose production and release, increasing lipolysis, and elevated concentration of LDL-B.
And that's what we were talking about, that disruption of the uncoupling of the negative feedback control. That's what we were talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
This progression culminates in type 2 diabetes. Risk for type 2 diabetes is directly related to biomarkers of hepatic DNL and palmitic and palmitoleic acid concentration. Fructose has a lower GLP-1 and pancreatic insulin release stimulation, further raising blood glucose, increasing its vascular and intracellular toxicity. These pathways occur in a bell curve distribution in a mixed population of high carbohydrate consumers. It is genetically similar populations, patterns of obesogenicity, for example, Polynesian Islanders, versus diabesogenicity, for example, East Indians, are recognizable. Clinical observations reflect that while diobesogenic pathway is progressive and somewhat linear in disease spectrum and progression, as similar seen in type 1 diabetes, the obesogenic pathway stalls when insulin production capacity peaks. These patients then assume a tertiary diobesogenic pattern, but their disease spectrum occurs as a combination of both patterns. These crossover patients are the most difficult to treat since they are resistant to insulin therapy. Intermittent fasting, or periods exceeding 12 hours of fasting with 6 to 8 hours eating windows or less, is a useful starting therapy for these individuals.
I wonder if that's where I got to, because it sounds like you can max out in, like if you're on the obesogenic pathway, once insulin production capacity hits a peak, you kind of cross over. Maybe that's where I all of a sudden became pre-diabetic because things had maxed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. And basically they're saying that intermittent fasting can be useful for that.
Yeah. Okay.
For people who have met their max.
So these are people who, like it says here, that they're resistant to insulin therapy. So these are people that, they're not really responding.
Yeah, because they have insulin resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So, thus, when diagnosing CECC or chronic excessive carbohydrate consumption diseases, it is important to understand insulin production capacity.
Sorry, my husband's got his computer on.
Since pathophysiology is predictably influenced by hyperglycemia, hyperinsulinemia, and insulin resistance. Measuring fasting blood glucose, hemoglobin A1C, C-peptide, insulin, glucagon, and lipid concentration has great diagnostic value. Ultimately, however, conversion to permanent TCR with IF, so total carbohydrate restriction with intermittent fasting, corrects the root cause and over time reduces remission of the diabetic and obese states. Furthermore, caloric reductive total carbohydrate restriction diets and weight loss as monitored by the scale is of greatest therapeutic benefit in obesogenic individuals, while continuous glucose monitoring and strict carbohydrate reduction with aggressive transient hypoglycemic and possible insulin therapy, leaning more towards a high-fat total carbohydrate restriction diet has great. Am I reading this part over? This is very like wordy and like bleh.
The paragraphs are large and
Oh my
long.
gosh, the words. It's like it not only uses a big word, but it uses it 50 times.
Yes.
Okay, so let me reread that sentence. Furthermore, caloric reductive total carbohydrate restriction diets and weight loss as monitored by the scale is of greatest therapeutic benefit in obesogenic individuals, while continuing glucose monitoring and strict carbohydrate reduction with aggressive transient hypoglycemic and possibly insulin therapy, leaning more towards a high-fat total carbohydrate restriction diet has greater therapeutic benefit in disobesogenic individuals. GLP-1 agonist medications that treat appetite as well as reducing gluconeogenesis and increasing insulin release are highly beneficial in both genetic types. Assigning differential insulin production capacity to genetics is probable, but epigenetic, environmental, and other lifestyle factors cannot be excluded.
Of course, now we've got like tons of controversy over the GLP-1 agonist medications because of the side effects.
Yeah. I mean, any medication has side effects.
Yeah.
I think there are some people that those medications are really good for because not everyone is willing or even able. Well, I mean, that's debatable, but particularly willing to do what we have done, you know.
But I think isn't the issue with those GLP-1 medications, isn't it that they typically used them for diabetics, which was at a lower dose, but then people started wanting to use them for,
weight loss.
And so the dosage has been increased. Like I think I've heard like 2 or 3 times what the normal dose or the regular approved dose was. And I think that's where people, you don't know the long-term effects of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's, it's up to each individual person what they decide on that and stuff. And so I like try not to pass judgment on people for that, especially since I understand just how, it's not just a matter of eating what you're supposed to be eating, right? It's not just a matter of saying, okay, I want to eat this way and I'm going to eat this way. There's so much more to it, the hormone stuff, the just basically food addiction, and then once you fall off and you start eating these foods, that leads to you wanting to eat more and more and more of them. And it's just like, there's just so many factors to it. And the fact that it decreases inflammation, that alone can help somebody get healthier, right? But personally, I don't think I would take them myself. My doctor has tried to get me to take low dose ones in the past, but she was also the one that didn't like the keto or carnivore. And, she would try to push lots of vegetables on me. And
yeah.
But,
well, this is a medical textbook, so I know they're going to be talking about medical treatment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
And of course, the medication can like help somebody get over the hump too. And then when they
Yeah.
start,
So,
yeah.
and I was reading somewhere recently, or maybe it was a video I was watching from like a ketogenic, influencer talking about like, okay, maybe you could do both, like
Mhm.
nobody says that you have to just do the GLP-1. You could do the GLP-1 along with carnivore keto, and, and then there's going to come a point where you don't need that anymore. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do we have any people who have done that, who have been able to see that they can actually get off of the GLP-1 and and maintain eating low carb?
I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere's done it.
I think
Yeah,
I've
I'd be
actually
curious.
seen a couple of videos, and I think the difference is they weren't using the GLP-1 as a weight loss tool. They were taking it at a lower dose to control
Yeah.
their diabetes.
But even at a lower dose, it
Yeah,
can
that's
it
what I'm
can affect
saying.
weight loss.
Yeah.
It can. Yeah, I'm just
It's
wondering
not
too,
these
like
people
how
are
it
losing
affects
weight so fast.
appetite.
I'm sorry,
'Cause
what?
I'm just wondering though, like with how it affects appetite, because it does affect your appetite. So the question I would have is, like, if somebody uses it as a tool while they're going low carb, and it kind of helps them with their appetite while they're transitioning to low carb or keto or carnivore, and then they get off of it, I wonder if there's like a rebound of appetite or cravings, or if they're fine.
I don't
I
know,
don't know
but
that.
Well, that's a good
I just
question.
I mean, I would think that it wouldn't be as bad if you were doing a low dose.
Probably not as bad.
But like
Yeah.
I think that's where most of the problems in these drugs come, is that, like you said, they're doing these doses that are so much higher. I can't remember exactly how much higher, but it's a lot higher. Like it's a
Mhm.
ridiculous amount higher than it's normally given. And so, I mean, it's just knocking people's appetite out completely. It's giving them horrible, like I've heard about sulfur burps, and just like it's giving them just horrible GERD. And it's because everything's just sitting there, nothing's moving down like it's supposed
Mhm.
to. Constipation, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
because of the
The constipation
gastroparesis.
part alone, it's a no for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well,
No
just
agree.
way.
having gastroparesis is miserable.
Oh,
You
I mean,
know.
and that can be permanent, like,
Yeah.
especially at
Yeah.
these high doses, like, you're risking so much. I can't imagine doing it myself, but, to
No,
each his
I
own, I
can't
guess.
either. Can't either.
Okay, so, the SREBP family. What is SREBP?
Okay, gotta go back. This is where we need our little glossary of acronyms.
Let's see. I guess I could type it in. SREBP. Sterol regulatory element binding proteins. There you go. They
Did
are
we actually have that
transcription.
one?
They are transcription factors that regulate lipid metabolism and homeostasis in cells. I don't know,
Oh,
but that's
we
what it
probably
is.
covered that in chapter 2.
Yeah.
So the SREBP family regulates the synthesis of fatty acids, triglycerides, and cholesterol. The SREBP family consists of 3 isoforms: SREBP1A, 1C, and 2.
That sounds familiar.
The biosynthesis of fatty acids and triglycerides is controlled by SREBP1C. In obesity and type 2 diabetes, insulin fails to suppress glucose production while lipogenesis is paradoxically enhanced. At the molecular level, increased lipogenesis observed in the insulin resistant state is due at least in part to the dysregulation of SREBP1C.
Woo.
So,
Interesting.
Lynn, do you want to read?
We're already 10 minutes over after the hour. You want to just stop here and we'll get into the fatty liver.
Yeah, we can do
With the
that.
next
Yeah, that's
one.
fine.
Yeah, that's fine. That I don't read this time. I'll just start out reading next time.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, because there's probably going to be more to discuss when it comes to fatty liver.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this is very like heavy.
it's heavy.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
So
I may
much.
actually go back and reread and take notes and try to dissect it a little bit, because I feel like it'll be easier to move forward understanding what we just read.
Right.
I mean, I think we're on the right track once we are
Yeah.
realize that, okay, wait a minute, we're not talking about how it's supposed to work. We're talking about the dysfunctional,
Yeah.
process. So, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of, it would be nice. Like, I want pictures.
Oh, there's pictures in there. Oh, you're
You
talking
love your
about like the
pictures.
heart. Yeah.
I want a little graphic videos of little cartoon glucose and
Yeah.
lipids going through the system. That's what I want,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turn
I
it
bet
into
you
a
could find
cartoon.
that online somewhere.
Probably. If I do,
Probably.
maybe I'll see we can play it.
All
So awesome.
right,
Okay,
guys. Well,
so you
I
are
don't know.
you're gonna have to work starting next Sunday.
So I think so. If I can find somebody to switch with me, then yes, because
Okay.
I don't have very many options right now. I have to have pretty much the middle of the week free. So I'm totally free Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays, like every week for the
Yeah.
next 4 months. But it's the other days that I'm having to fit my work into. Like,
Yeah.
does
I'm
that make
good
sense?
any of those days as long as
And
it's after.
Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays are when I'm on Zoom calls for Healing Humanity. But my Zoom calls are like, for me, like 3 p.m. So even if it was like 6:30 Central Time, like on a Tuesday, that would work for me, because I'm done by, that would give me like 30 minutes, downtime between. So that would work for
Yeah.
me.
Okay, well, maybe we might do Tuesdays then. We can text and figure it out,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We'll get it all scheduled, and because I don't want to wait another 4 months.
No.
Because we're never
yeah.
going to get through the book. But yes, I think that maybe I think I might dig in and do a little bit of study, not moving forward, but going backwards.
Yeah.
I think I need to do the same.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking at my schedule. I'm most likely going to work next Sunday. So, do you want to just plan to do Tuesday evening, and then we'll like announce the time?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
on the 4th.
Yeah.
So on Tuesday the 4th.
2/4, and then was the 6:30 Central Time? Was that okay, or do we need to talk a little more about that?
I mean,
That's
that works
okay?
for me.
Okay. Wait. Oh, never mind. I've got something on the 4th at 4:45.
What time are you going to?
How long is it going to be?
Well, I don't know. I'm going with my daughter to get nails and pedicure.
Well, that's important.
That is that's
family time, like we were talking about.
It is, yeah.
Well, this
So,
week I can do Wednesday. So you want to do the 5th this week?
Okay.
This is the one
All right,
Wednesday
so
where we
5th.
don't have an expert, because we have Dr. Bright. She's going to be coming. Well, hang on. Sorry, I'm wrong. We have Dr. Kilt on the 5th. It's let's see. Maybe I better get my time right. So this week is Wednesday. So we'd be going like a week and a half. So we're talking next week.
Oh, we are talking next week. If we're talking next week, I think I'm good. Yeah, I was looking at the 4th. I thought I heard somebody say the 4th.
The 4th is next week.
Yeah.
Well, oh, I see.
So we're talking about like 10 days, waiting 10 days. So yeah, so the 5th I actually have but I might be able to do later. I will text instead of making everybody listen to
Yeah.
us. We'll text and figure out a time.
This is what we do.
I don't think anybody knows we're here right now anyway.
That's right. We figured out. So we'll figure out what will work so that maybe we can I may be able to do 6:30 Wednesday because I think that our Zoom call is still like 3:00 my time. So I'll
Okay.
look at my schedule with Healing Humanity and text you guys.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
all right. Very good.
You know, we may want to make it on a day where we can just keep it consistently that day, even after the 4-month period. But, you know, that's just a thought, just putting it out there.
Yeah.
So,
we after we account for pedicures and, pre-existing appointments.
Yeah, well, when we do it, like if we decide to do Tuesdays, I'll just block that off on my calendar, and then we won't do pedicures on Tuesdays anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll just block it off.
when I start, when I go back to my other schedule, I'll probably have Wednesdays off. I'd say I'll probably have Wednesdays and Thursdays off. I'll probably work Tuesdays. So
nice.
But that's in 4 months. So, I mean, we don't have to keep the same day. So anyway, we can talk about it.
All right. Well, it was really good to see everybody.
Yes,
yes,
me too. It's been way too long. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and end the stream for today, and we'll post whenever whenever we decide. All righty.
All right.